Well, hello everyone. This is Dwayne here with Bronco Wild Outdoors. And who am I sitting with?
Gavin from
Gavin.
Bronco Wild Outdoors.
Hey everyone, what's going on? It's so good to be back with you here this awesome night. We've had a little coastal storm. Well, it's supposed to be Stormageddon, but it ended up being like clouds and a little bit of rain, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, thanks for joining us tonight. Um, yeah, go ahead and turn that down. Thanks for joining us tonight. We have a special guest tonight. So we're getting ready to bring our guest in, Johny with Johnny's Car Care and Review. If you haven't seen it, he has a YouTube channel, does reviews, Bronco, Maverick, other vehicles as well. And I'll let him get into all that. And it's pretty interesting. I love seeing these channels and diving in deep and watching how other people do their cover their vehicles and their content. It's pretty cool. So as you've seen on our channel, Gavin and I, we like to talk about different stuff with the Bronco, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to hit the live chat. Hey everyone, if you have any comments, you have any questions, please just put them here in the comments. And if you haven't already, if you're just tuning in, checking us out, please hit that subscribe button. Maybe like this live stream, and that helps YouTube send it out to everyone else. So
Sure does.
there we go. So we're going to bring in Johny. Johny, can you hear us?
Yeah, right on. Hey, Gavin. How are you, Dwayne?
I'm doing well. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday night here. We're brave. We're going head to head with Yellowstone. I don't know if you watch much TV or not. We don't watch a lot of TV, but my wife got me hooked into that show, and tonight it comes on at 8. So if you're watching live or watching this in a replay, hello anyway. All right.
Yeah,
So
no-
Johny, I like I said, I appreciate you being here tonight. We're going to do something a little bit different. Every Sunday night, we've had Gavin has live streams, and it's an honor to have you as our first official guest. So
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. It's really appreciated. Thank you.
yeah, and by the way, and after this live stream, I definitely suggest everyone to go to Johnny's Car Care and Reviews and hit that subscribe button and check it out. If you probably they know who he is by now, but if you haven't, just check it out, and some really good content. I want to get into the Maverick thing because I think out of everyone that I've seen, you're leading that. You're definitely leading that information. So I want to. I guess the question for most people, that I see on YouTube or anywhere else for that matter is, when did you first get interested in cars and trucks? What's your story?
Yeah, that's a cool question. Thanks for asking it. Yeah, I first got into vehicles. Gosh, it goes back to my actually very first memories. My dad had a Trans Am, 6.6 liter Trans Am. Now, it wasn't a Ford product, and it was a darn good product. And actually, I think it was probably my mom that got me most interested in it because this thing was manual, 6.6 liter engine, and she would just tear up and down. And, my dad, I don't know if he was naive or not, but he'd always be like, oh, go put gas into it. And he didn't know what she would get up to, but, she'd have me in the back seat and she'd be popping that clutch and spinning tires all over town.
And you were like, yeah, man, this is it.
Yeah, I was like, this is the dream life. I couldn't wait to grow up and get my driver's license because of that car. And then actually later on, my stepdad had, it was a 1963 Nova SS, and it was the hardtop 2-door. So unbelievable. Well, pretty darn rare because most of them get turned into V8 dragsters and end up crashing. And this thing had the straight 6 in it, all original. And that thing used to bring us down to the cottage. We just loved that green Nova SS. So that really got me into cars. And when going down to the cottage, we used to have these my dad would just be like, here's an Auto Trader. So I'd spend 4 hours going through the Auto Trader, playing with my brother beside me. We'd each have our own Auto Trader. And the competition was who can, find, the best price truck or the lowest cost, fastest muscle car. And we'd just argue in the back seat about whose car was better that they found in the Auto Trader. So that's how I got into cars.
Yeah, which one was cheaper, right? Better and cheaper. Yeah. Yeah,
that's right.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, we grew up we had multiple brands in our family. My dad was deep down a Ford guy, but he'd end up with an old Chevy truck, 50s model for like $1, right? So how do you turn that away? So he got it and he fixed it up. But my mom, speaking of Pontiac, we had a Granville. Now this thing, it was the USS Granville, right? It looked like a cruise ship, and it had a 455 4-barrel in it. And man, talk about when she hit that passing gear, it was on, and I remember like you sitting in the back seat, and we weren't back then, we weren't in car seats, and I guess we were seat belted in. It was a crazy time. So don't do that, kids. You're always seat belted in.
I am.
All right, the next thing that I've been, and I like knowing the answer to this question because it tells a lot about where someone's content goes. Is why a YouTube channel? Like, what was the day before you started your YouTube channel? What made that happen?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I think there's a lot of factors that I'd have to, it's hard to pinpoint one particular thing, but I'd say probably the main factor and what keeps me going now, because when you're doing 2 to 6 videos every week and working 50 some hours elsewhere, you got to love what you're doing. And for me, it's really a compelling factor. I'll be on Facebook, the rare moment I have. So, maybe 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning or late at night. And I find all this misinformation. And not only do I find people who are, mixed up, confused, and just completely missing the mark. And, I feel bad. I want to help them out. And I'd always be on Facebook trying to answer, be like, oh, no. This is what it is. Go to, page 13 on the trailer towing guide for, whether it's the Ford towing guide or Chev or GM, whatever it may be. And then the other thing that really got me going. So for a while that kept me happy. But then when I actually started to see that there's people, maybe they're not deliberately putting the wrong information out there, but I was watching YouTube because I love cars. I'm totally into it. And I'd go on to YouTube and I'd just see these, not just the thumbnails, but often whole videos, 20, 30 minutes of time where a vehicle's getting reviewed and it completely gets trashed because of one factor. And I know people end up missing out on, what could be a fantastic long relationship with a great vehicle that could have been perfect for them, but not perfect for that reviewer. When I review things, I try to say like, hey, I'm extremely power hungry. One of my very first vehicles as a teenager, I was whipping around town, taking care of I was the town gardener and the town painter. And I was doing this with a 1972 or 73 Plymouth Satellite, which was basically like a Roadrunner, but a little comfier interior, and I didn't have the cool striping, the little Roadrunner in the back.
Right.
But anyways, I was just whipping around town, and I used to swing the back end around, and I have other people in town and even other town workers just give me kind of the thumbs up, because back then you could do that kind of nonsense, and it wasn't. We didn't have the same level of safety and consciousness as we do now.
Right.
But if I would have read a review on that car, I'd have been told probably by most of the people that, if YouTube would have existed, that it was just, garbage for whatever reason. And I know I personally have loved my Bronco the last 2 months, but if I would have listened to YouTube, I would think that, for example, because you can see engine wires and there's no horribly ugly plastic covering it, because for some reason, some reviewers want to see a big square piece of plastic covering the engine, that somehow it's a huge failure. And I just like to really pro and con everything. And
and I'm like you, there's certain things I don't like, honestly, that like our Range Rover has that cover, and it looks cool when you raise the hood, but I don't know. I want to dissipate heat as much as possible out of the engine. And if you look at new cars, I'm wondering if Ford did this as the newer, I saw one of your videos with the Maverick, and there was a shot where I could see it looks like a pretty heavy duty panel covering under the engine for aerodynamics, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that, I don't know, that some of the covers on the engines look nice when you're taking pictures or you're doing the Instagram photo shoot, but like, I don't know. I'm not about that, and my Bronco, I intend on the hood being down more than up. So I really don't care anyway. I want to go wheeling and road tripping and taking Gavin to see some cool places, right?
Yeah.
But no, I hear you on that. We'll get into that, because that has been some of the stuff out there. It's not this, I guess, salacious with, the thumbnail that makes it look like total chaos. And, sure, that gets people to click on it. And we'll get into that. But all right, you seem to like Ford. And I'm not suggesting it, but I'm just asking. You seem to gravitate toward Ford more toward any other brand. I think it's obvious. What or who got you into Ford, or what was that moment you said, yeah, that's me?
I guess Ford vehicles. My story with Ford is kind of like my story growing up. My parents had me move around a few times, and different provinces, different places within the province. And anytime I arrived somewhere new, I'd take a licking because I was the new kid, and I'd just keep ticking. I just stayed positive. I continued, I'd slowly work on people. I'm like, hey, this guy's beating me up today, but next week we're going to be friends. And that was my experience with the automobiles. I've had 60 some vehicles now. I've generally had, sometimes I've had 6, 7 vehicles at once. I generally have at least 3 in the yard. And for a while I was on this real Toyota kick. And of course, I had to rebel from my father in some way. I went to school like he asked me to do. So I had to not get a Ford because we used to work in the woods, and they have sort of like a part of a mountain. And anyways, we used to cut wood so we could heat the house and save a little bit of money. And we used to do that in a Ranger. And that thing, we must have had that for 4 or 5 years in the woods. And we bought this thing, it was really old. And the only thing that killed it is the body and the frame completely disconnected. So a mechanic traded it for a lawnmower with us. So I rebelled and I went full out Toyota. And Nissan. I was really into the Japanese vehicles. So I had a 240SX. I had a 300ZX that was tuned up into the mid 500 horsepower area. And anyways, I have had, I think, 5 Toyota MR2s, and every single one of my 1990s Japanese vehicles leaked oil, and pretty badly. And these were major repairs. And in one MR2, I must have put about $12,000 into it. And then I sold it. And my buddy, who is a maniac, he's blown a lot of motors, and he blew through 2 motors. He's on his 3rd motor. And, throughout this whole time, I just happened to have a Mustang on the farm. And the Mustang I ended up keeping for a number of years. It was one of the rare vehicles I kept. And this thing just, like me, took a licking, kept on ticking. And, when my MR2 would break and have an oxygen sensor cost me $900. And then in the same summer, an alternator, and then another piece of computerized wish wash. I had the only thing that ever broke on my 1994 5-liter Mustang was the oxygen sensor, and it was with tax $93, and I just bought one at $900 for the Toyota. So that's when I was just washing my hands. I'm out. I guess I'm a Ford fanboy now.
Yeah. Hey, 94, you said 94, right? So that's the first year of the new body style, right? 93 was the last year of the Fox body, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I had the first 5-liter. So if any 5, because it was a new 5-liter, and if any 5-liter, if anything would have gone wrong, it should have been that. This was a new setup on the engine, because the 93 5-liter isn't quite like the 94. I had a 95, and I've also had 4.6 liters, which I found, was interesting that Ford went slowly more towards a European style V8. Which I find Ford for me is in a happy spot. They're halfway in between being boring and very reliable. And on the other spectrum, you've got Mercedes, BMWs, Audis. They're extremely innovative, but they're also, extremely problematic.
Yeah.
So I just find it's that happy middle spot that Ford's found.
Well, and another thing is, the overhead cam stuff, when they went from push rods to overhead cam, you sort of have the same components, but a lot, I guess. So you have push rods and a push rod engine, obviously, but an overhead cam engine, you have the cam and cam followers, which are equivalent to a rocker arm would be. And then you have hydraulic lash adjusters, which would be equivalent to hydraulic lifters, but just a lot less moving parts. You know what I mean? So it just seems to me that I think going to the overhead cam, when you mentioned from a 5-liter to a 4.6, I like that move because there just seems to be less problems.
When recently, and I like Ford's for me is in that happy spot between being too innovative or being really, really reliable, but boring and using the same parts for 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Which either end, I like the middle ground. And really when it comes to those cam phasers, so what I love about the 5-liter, those 4 cam shafts, you can vary their timing using those cam phasers. And there have been a few problems with cam phasers across EcoBoost engines. and a few. 5-liter, the cam phasers can cause a little bit of trouble, but for all the benefits you get out of it, if ever I had to put that type of repair in, I'm all about pros and cons. So if I know that over 10 years, I'll save, let's say $5,000 in gas, and then on the 10th year, I have to put $3,000 into cam phasers, I'm still going to see it as a win.
Yeah, and I know somebody will grill me on the comments with the overhead cam being better than push rod, because then they'll bring up the cam phasers and things like that. But like you said, the net benefit, and for somebody who's built a lot of engines, I get it. I like all of them, but I think as an owner that wants to push the button, or now with your phone, crank your Bronco up with the app. How cool is that?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So if somebody wants to do that and not wrench on it, I'm good with it. So I think Gavin wants to hit you up with this question here.
Yes. So why do you think the Bronco has been such of a big hit so far?
That's a solid question, Gavin.
Yeah.
Thank you for throwing that one at me.
And it was his question.
Yeah, it's a solid one. That's good. I have to put some thought into that. Why has it been, so it's certainly, there's no denying it. This is probably, from my recollection, this is the hottest vehicle I've ever seen hit the market, other than, your occasional rare exotic that'll draw in all sorts of attention. Like, for example, if Ferrari says only a few owners can have this model and we'll pick you, well, that'll create all sorts of buzz. But the Bronco buzz has been wild. It's been crazy. And I think for a lot of people, it comes down to, father, son, or daughter, father, mother, daughter. It's family relationships. I think a lot of us remember whether, for me, part of my attraction to this was that old Ranger, which was similar to the Bronco too, just being unkillable out in the woods.
Yeah.
Cutting wood with my dad. And I think a lot of people have like an emotional attachment to the Bronco name, and it just looks so unbelievably cool. How often does a manufacturer do bring back a retro design and do it this well? The last time I remember Ford tried it in 2005, they really put a lot of retro aspects into that 05 Mustang. And I think that was probably, I don't want to call it a hit or miss, but I think a lot of people still missed the Fox body. Right. And I don't think they had hit that sweet spot. And this time, I think they nailed the sweet spot. They couldn't have done a better job designing this.
Yeah. And I think also, and I hear you, I agree 100%. Part of it too is the Mustang was still there, and the Bronco had been gone for quite a while. And I think where the Bronco went, the excuse was, sorry, we have a lot of background. Gavin has a little project here or something that we got in the mail today. We wanted to ask you if you received it. But, with the Bronco, it had gotten to the point to where it was big and it was 2 doors. And some people love that style, and I get it. But I like that early Bronco, and I think when you think Bronco, that's what a lot of people think of, right? That, what was it, 66 to 77? What was the last? I think it was 76 or 77. So I think that when it came back, it was a perfect balance. I said that in one of our videos. I said, it's the perfect balance of retro and what you would expect a modern day vehicle to be.
And I'm happy Ford didn't shy away. I'm really happy that they didn't shy away from making this not just retro, but also modern. Because if they would have just given in and give people what they want, they'd still be building pushrod engines. And don't get me wrong, the pushrod V8 is unbreakable. It's the type of engine you can have sitting in a scrapyard for 20 years. And, you walk in, you pour a little gas into it or lighter fluid or whatever it may be. You carb start, you crank it up and you drive it out of the scrapyard. But, at some point you got to want more. And what I love is that Ford, I love and hate the fact that, or love and dislike the fact that there's no V8, because, I'm kind of happy that they're sticking to their guns and saying, you know what, if you think about it, the 2.3 liter engine, which people had and still have a whole lot of trouble accepting. If you look at what's going on here? You look at an Audi Q5. An Audi Q5 comes standard with a 2-liter engine, has 261 horsepower and 270. I'd taken a note right here. I think it's like 277 or 275. It's got 261 horsepower, and the torque is, I don't quite have it on me, but it's in about 277 pound-feet of torque. And you look at that 2.3 liter now doing, I think it's 300. They kicked it up. It was 270 horsepower on regular gas and about 300 pound-feet of torque. But anyways, it's doing better than a Q5. It's very similar to BMW's inline six that they have on the X5. And I don't hear anyone getting up in arms, ready to go, storm the castle at Ford because, there's an inline six. BMW does an inline six. No one gets worked up. Ford puts a fantastic 2.3 liter into the Bronco, which is making a ton of power and can even make a ton more power with modifications. And, everyone's getting their pitchforks and running right up to the castle walls. And I'm happy they stuck their guns on, principles and ethics. But I personally would kind of like the V8 because I love I just sold my Mustang, just sold my GT Mustang convertible, which hurts, but I'm actually not missing it at all. And I actually haven't driven my 95 Mustang convertible, 5 liter. I had to get back to my old ways and get that 5 liter. And I haven't driven it since I got the Bronco. Marie reminded me that today. She's like, you have to put it in the garage before, winter's coming. And I'm like, stop saying winter's coming. This hurts. Yeah.
Well, the Bronco is something that I just think that you just I don't know if you're going to get tired of it. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of people, when they get it, it's new. Everybody loves it now, but and I have a question for you about that later on, but where when does the new wear off? So I think for me, I enjoy it. Now, mine is a weekend driver. It's a weekend driver. It sits in the garage until the weekend. And hey, go ahead and take Gavin's over here playing drums with the hey, by the way, we have a metal wagon wheel table here. And it's like a speaker. I made it. I took this old steel wheel. Oh, wow. That's the car stuff. Anyway, we made it, but man, it's bad for this. You can hear the dinging. And I think Gavin's anxious to open this here. Hey, but let's go there real quick. Johnny, have you received this yet? Hold it up in front of the camera, dude.
It's this package.
Well, hold the other side up. Have you received a little Bronco package in the mail recently?
No, up here in Canada, we don't get presents.
Oh, you don't get presents? Oh, really? What's up with that? Well, let's open this up and see what it is.
I don't know.
So everyone bear with us. There's paper in here, so you're going to hear a bunch of rattling. You're okay with this, right? I want to see. Oh, okay. It looks like we have another flag.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I believe it is. It might be like a banner.
Here you go. Go ahead and put that. All right. Well, Johnny, I'm not gonna rub this in your face since you guys don't get presents over there. But we got a Bronco flag. Check this out.
That's cool.
Cool.
Right on.
So yeah, and
the box.
Yeah, the box is pretty cool. I'll tell you, whoever takes care of this marketing stuff, it's actually pretty cool. So let's get back to this, Gavin. Ask Mr. Johnny this right here.
The first one?
Yeah.
All right, so.
I remember these. He can't.
When did you first, know or find out that the Bronco was coming back?
Yeah. What was that? Did you just hear a rumor, or did you know for a fact the Bronco was coming back?
I studied in history and philosophy, which is a good analysis of human behavior. So when I highly suspected it, I had some good guesstimates. And this goes back to the Rampage movie with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Yeah. And when they had a Bronco in that, I said, what? That had to have cost Ford some money, not just building the prototype, but having it placed in the movie. It's front, right, and center. That's top dollar. This thing's coming back. It's just a question of time. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And I remember, you remember that little stretch of I always called them the titanium look, that silvery, gray, silvery color. Gavin, he was commenting on that not too long ago. He reminded me, hey, that it's the Bronco, it's different. But I mean, if you just said, hey, between the late model Broncos, what did they, 96 was the last year, he made a comment, well, that one looks a heck of a lot closer to the one we have. Yeah. I was like, well, that's a good observation. But yeah, you're right. I didn't think about what did it cost. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, they were all obviously headed down that road. I did see some
pictures of different. I mean, there was one at a car show. Ford drug it out, and it was cool. It looked more like the early Bronco. You remember that one? It was like red. I think it was red sitting in a parking lot. Anyway, it looked closer, but there was something about it that didn't. Maybe it's because I see what's in my garage now and I really like it. There was something about it that I'd said, I think they did it right with this one. And of course, like you said earlier, somebody's going to find fault with anything. I mean, Gavin's obviously that new generation. He hasn't experienced any Broncos.
I mean, one.
Well, yeah, and
Or
and he gets to
like
see this new one,
a
right?
couple, really.
and
Couple sports.
Well, and when we went to Townsend, Tennessee, Gavin was just like amazed. He's
Yeah.
like, wow, these things are cool. But getting back to, bringing the cool back, are you surprised that Ford spent so much time and money in the actual ability of this Bronco to off-road?
Yeah, I didn't expect to get this much off-road vehicle. And, some people will say, oh, well, it's so expensive. Of course it's got to do this. Well, the
Yeah.
base Bronco isn't actually that expensive, relatively speaking. It's a lot of money because inflation has made it so that, our pay, what we get paid has not matched inflation since the mid 1970s.
Yeah.
We historically took a hit in the 80s and 90s on pay when inflation far outpaced pay. But,
Yeah.
relatively speaking, compared to other vehicles, we're getting a whole lot of off-road machine. What does surprise me is how many people are actually picking up Wild Tracks. That is the most ordered model, followed by Badlands. And I'm thinking 98% of these are never going to do, or 99% will never do any extreme off-roading. Maybe 10% is going to do medium to light to medium off-roading. And the base Bronco or, a Big Ben is fantastic for light to medium off-roading. And if you're going to, for an individual that says medium off-roading requires at least the capability to go through 4 inches of mud, well, you could just take a Big Ben and throw on, bigger tires. You don't need a locking diff to get through 3 to 4 inches of mud. And if you think you're going to get through more, the Black Diamond is so unbelievably capable, but they're just not getting credit. They're not the models that are selling.
Yeah.
People are spending so much money on these to the point where they're even willing to buy them when there's $10,000 or more of markup. It's
Do you
wild.
think we lose a trim level after 22? I mean, I think, so obviously after 21, there's no first edition, obviously, but then there's, the Everglades?
Yeah, there's going to be the special editions. And, I don't think they're going to lose a trim model, but what I would like to see, and I might lose some friends or some subscribers over this, but I'm really surprised how they offer Sasquatch on every single model. I find it takes away a bit of the uniqueness of Wild Track, because when it boils down to it, I think I was one of the very early, or it's not so much that I love studying, I'm compelled to study because I want to help people. And of course, to help people, you got to know as much as you possibly can. So when I was able to build in price right off at the beginning, so the first week I could build in price, I think I must have spent about 15 hours looking through this thing. This was before I had a YouTube channel, so I had free time. And I was one of the early adopters to realize that the Badlands was the most off-road version. And it was months and months of having to hear people be like, oh, you have to get a Wild Track. That's the top model. And I'd be telling people either on Facebook or, my contacts, I'd say, no, the Wild Track isn't the top model. The Badlands actually the top model. The Build and Price website put it in the wrong spot, but it's because if you add a 2.7 liter to a Badlands, it's more expensive than the Wild Track because it's more capable.
So you're saying in the wrong spot, like it wasn't stacked that way it was in the wrong spot, literally?
No,
I mean,
I feel the Badlands, when you go on the Build and Price,
I don't know if you knew something I didn't, but yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't have put it right before the Wild Track. I would have put it after the Wild Track. I would have, and they did later clarify it by actually putting the label underneath extreme off-roading. So it does help you. Now it guides you to the right spot. But what was it, like 8, 9, or 10 months? There wasn't really anything written underneath. So you'd think, if anyone who wants to spend money and wants, the biggest, baddest model would go straight to Wild Track. And I think that's part of the reason why they sold so many.
Well, one thing for me was the night of the reveal was July 13th, 2020.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
So I was thinking to myself, here I feel like I need to hurry up and reserve because I didn't know. I knew if I felt that way, I buy and sell a lot of real estate. And so my emotion about buying stuff is kind of dull at this point. I buy stuff, sell stuff, just houses and everything. This thing was, for the first time in a very long time, outside of family and people, it was I think, the most interesting, most appealing bit of marketing that anyone could do. And now I felt compelled. I needed to hurry up and reserve one because I had no idea that reservations were going to be where they were, just shy of 200,000.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, oh, geez, which one? And I gravitated to the most capable off-road, and that was the Badlands. And so I started looking at details on it, and I was like, yeah, that sounds like me. And it was pretty early. Of course, the website was locked up, so I kept trying and trying and trying and trying. And somewhere around 10:30, I was able to reserve my Badlands, and then immediately wanted to do a Wild Track, which I don't know if you've seen my video on that. That was pretty hysterical. But I finally reserved one, but it wasn't until after midnight because I couldn't get back on the website. And so sometime after midnight, I did the second one. So I have a day 1, day 2 reservation. And of course, as you know, and everyone watches this channel, we took delivery of our Badlands in September 24th. Now you got yours beginning of September, right?
Yeah, I got it the 10th of September. It was built. I've got the window sticker back here. They started building it the 16th. I think they released it. I got the update August 25th. So I think they actually released it ready for transport the 22nd, but I don't know the exact day it left. So all I know is on the 25th, it said it was already in transport. So it either left the factory the 22nd, 23rd, or 24th. And it got here pretty quickly. The 10th of September, I had it in the yard. Marie had no idea it was coming along. And actually, I was surprised too, because my ETA was supposed to be end of September. And I figured, hey, how things are going, I'm not going to plan on getting this end of September. I'll tell Marie, we'll probably get it, sometime in October, but hopefully before the end of October. I showed up with this brand new Bronco. She had never seen one in real life. So when she saw that thing, she just blurted out, "This is the best day of my life." And I was like,
"You gotta love that."
Oh, that it was good. I loved it. But then it hit me. I was like, oh. And I asked her, I said, "So how about all those other days we spent together?"
Yeah. It's like, what? Didn't all that mean anything?
Yeah.
Don't go down that road. Seriously, literally. No, it's cool. Gavin, our Bronco came in, and this, I'll let him tell the funnest story. I could not believe that a grown man was tracking a vehicle on a train through these little towns of West Virginia, and it was crazy. So we had a fun time with that. I learned how to use technology in tracking trains. It was pretty cool. But when ours came in on September 23rd, it was raining, and it came in. They didn't. I don't think they had time to do the PDI on it, so. We said, okay, we'll pick it up tomorrow. Right. So they detailed it, did all that, did the PDI early on a Friday, and there it sat. And I did all the paperwork and paid for it. And then I went and got Gavin from school because I didn't want to drive it home without him. And so I left it there and went home. And when he got out of school, I picked him up. I picked you up early, right? Yeah. And anyway, we went and we got it. And I'll never forget, I knew the Bronco was hot, obviously, looking at the reservations and orders and all the attention here online. But when I was leaving the dealership, I'd cross 4 lanes of traffic and do a U-turn. And the people that were taking pictures and looking and pointing and thumbs up, it was the craziest thing in the world.
I'm going to use the bathroom.
Yes, sir. It was just the craziest thing in the world. And I don't know, to me, that's when it hit me that, wow, this is going to be an interesting ownership of a vehicle. Because I've had Shelby GT500s, and those cars get looks from car people. The Bronco gets looks from everyone.
Oh yeah. I was at the lights when my first night with it, because I deliberately came home at dark. So I snuck this thing in. This was like a girlfriend or something that I was sneaking in, and I'm 16 years old or something.
Yeah.
I didn't want
it in the back door. Eh?
Yeah, that's right. I didn't want Marie to see it. I wanted it to be a surprise for the next morning, but I'm at the lights, and you say that even non-car people notice it. People with junk cars, like people who hate vehicles, like there was this rusted out. I think it was either a Hyundai or a rusted out. Anyways, it was late 90s car that's worth maybe $300, and the guy's talking to me at the lights, and I had to tell him, like, hey, the light's green, and he kept talking. I'm like, no, the light's green. Like, go.
We're gonna call road rage here. That's one of those. That's what, with gas prices now, that's one of those cars where the gas costs more than the car. So if you have a full tank of gas, it's a liability. But yeah, so I was going to ask you, how do you see the small issues affecting Bronco sales? When I say issues, like the top stuff we went through and stuff like that. Dealers, not dealers, but I should say people ordering vehicles and they're not getting build dates, which I will mention something about me, which I felt horrible about my situation. I want to clear the air tonight because, I just feel like I need to, but I say small issues, right? You think that affects anything at all, or is Ford just plowing right through it and they offer so much in a Bronco you don't ultimately care?
I can think back to how I felt along the process, and I can say I cared, but I was also withholding judgment until I drove the vehicle. Right. Because, I'm all about pros and cons, and I like to look at things in a balanced perspective. And I said, you know what, I'm not going to call judgment on this, and I'm not going to allow my emotions to get the best of me. Essentially, I'm going to stay stoic. Shut my mouth. I'm going to keep my mouth quiet. And if I've waited for months and months and months and I drive it and it's bad, well, then we're going to have issues. But if I drive it and I know it was worth the wait, I will be really happy. I wasn't just complaining the whole time. And I also, balanced it out with looking at, different manufacturers. And I was seeing that, there's Mercedes is having plant closures. GM at one point closed 6 plants in North America. So, it was difficult for pretty much every automobile manufacturer. It's finally hitting Toyota now, because Toyota had a really good, they had a lot of a lot of microchips stocked up. So they're only getting hit with, some more serious delays now, except for the Toyota RAV4 Prime, which I think Toyota may or may not have deliberately made very few to kind of burn the market while battery prices come down, because the amount of primes that they're delivering it's wildly low. A local dealership that sells roughly 1,000 Toyotas per year got 12 per year. So within the first, I think it was 2 months, they had sold out for 2 years. 2 years worth of incoming vehicles.
Yeah, and isn't it amazing how where we are in this unique time because of the last year and a half? Is car lots. I get it. Car lots are very few new cars there, and every once in a while you'll see a truck pull in. I'll notice at our local dealership, and 3 or 4 days later, that pile of vehicles out front are gone, or mostly gone. So it's just a crazy time. Like, how do you balance that? It's crazy in my real estate business. It's like nothing's normal. So I wake up every day and say, okay, what unicorn is going to tackle me in my front yard on the way to work today, because it's something crazy. When do you think the market, now this is one of those questions, I don't think we'll ever really know the answer to this. When do you think the market will balance out? When will inventory order holders receive their Bronco and Broncos start showing up on lots? Now, I heard something in a video today of yours where you posted, did you say that Ford's going to start building stock Broncos or for inventory, or what? Did I misunderstand that?
No, you didn't misunderstand that. And that's, I'm actually really happy with how Ford has handled most everything. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot comes down to good communication. But of course, to anyone who's married, that it's about good communication, but it's also about good listening. So, and I've been following it and trying to get the good communication out there. Ford, yes, absolutely. To answer you directly, yes, some dealers will have inventory, but this wasn't done deliberately, and this wasn't the plan. And Ford did everything to avoid this. And it'll only be at certain dealerships. But basically, really simply put, it's that Ford for the last several months has been telling everyone really clearly the 2.7 liter could slow you down. A hitch could slow you down. Sasquatch, because of the locking front diff, can slow you down. A modular front bumper can slow you down. And they've been repeating it like every 2 weeks almost. You know, whether it's Bronco Nation that has nothing to do with Ford, of course, is telling it, or Ford directly, they've made it really clear. And they're making it really clear so that people would, and of course, you know, the big one, the hard top, they've made it so unbelievably clear. And they've been telling people, if you want to get your Bronco sooner, you need to, you know, switch, if anything, if possible, all of this, or at least some of it. So before this news came out, I foresaw a few things. So I started talking to people about it. At first, some people thought I was crazy and let me know in the comments section, but I switched to, and even people in the car world, but I switched to a soft top, and people were like, well, at least you're not getting a two-door anymore. That's a thumbs up, because for some reason in my area, the two-door doesn't garnish the same respect as it does in your area, because two-door, no one has old fond memories with their dad in a two-door Bronco.
Right.
So I switched to a four-door. I got applauded for that, but I got torn apart when I went from a four-door hard top to a soft top. I actually had someone that I know call me crazy. And like, oh, you know, they're calling me Dark Web Johnny. So
Dark Web.
I had
to a soft top, seriously?
Yeah, I know. I'm Dark Web Johnny, and I've even had some people call me Johnny Darko. So anyways, they thought I was, you know, just kind of going off my rocker with stuff. But anyways, I switched to the soft top, and I kept my 2.7 liter, and I kept my hitch. But right there, the fact that I got a build, being, even though I was a February 14th, I think it was my early birthday present to myself. I got the Bronco. I ordered it then because it took me 6 months to figure out which was the right Bronco for me, because I'm horrifically cheap. So it was really hard to get the Bronco I wanted, which was a Badlands, but would have actually been with the 12-inch screen and the 360 camera. But I stayed somewhat cheap. But anyways, what happens is the factory is going to build Broncos no matter what. And I got a build because so many people didn't make changes. So many people are saying, you know what? No, I'm not willing to negotiate. I don't want to lose anything. And that's cool. I respect these people. They're sticking to their guns. But that makes it so that the factory's got to build something. They're not just going to say, okay, you know what? Billy and Joey, they don't want, soft top Broncos. So you know what? Diane at the factory and everyone else, all, whatever it is, 5,000 employees, go home because, Jimmy doesn't want his Bronco to be a soft top. No,
he doesn't want that trim or that.
No, they're going to build that Bronco. They're going to build as many Broncos as they can every day. And and what has happened is the last 2 weeks of production made it that there just weren't reservations to fill.
Right.
Probably mostly because of the hard top. Yep. Because, I have a 2.7 liter, and even though it's supposed to be on the naughty list, I got my Christmas present way before Christmas. I got my Badlands Bronco, but that factory's got to pump them out. So they're going to pump them out, and then they've got to do something with them, and they're not giving them away in sweepstakes. So
the time to move them to the dealer. I get you. And I was going to compliment, there was two people, not people, but two channels that actually, did you hear that?
I think that's the cat.
Gavin knocked over his little stand here. We're entertaining live. So I was going to tell you, there's two different people, or two different channels. All Terrain Nation, which, by the way, David just checked in there. He was constantly talking about the tops and how some potential issues there. And so I started thinking, and so I'm listening every week, are we going to find out some updates? And then Bronco Nation had some guys with Ford on there. I think Estevan was one, and it was crazy. I mean, it was like, look, if you don't have a VIN today and you have a hard top on your order, you will be a 22.
Yeah. And
I just couldn't deal with that. And I'm like, okay, no problem. Let's go to a soft top. And like I mentioned earlier, we thought our ears were going to be bleeding from the noise of the soft top, and, the wrinkles were going to keep us up at night or whatever. I got our Bronco with the soft top, and I've never been happier. As a matter of fact, I'm glad that I didn't go MIC right now.
Yeah.
I like it.
Dwayne, I'm with you on this. I
Yeah.
love my soft top. And let's just remember 55% of marriages don't work out.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So, I feel YouTube is a lot like YouTube is filled with people who get divorced, is how I feel, because they'll take one little thing and they'll make the biggest deal about it. And they won't be able to get over the fact, we were talking about it earlier, the plastic covers, and
Yeah.
they'll get hooked on it and they won't be able to listen to anything else. And you know what? My 5-liter, I thought it was silly that it had a plastic cover, because 2018 5-liter Mustangs have vents that make it so very little water or next to no water can go in, but it's made so that the hot air can get out of the engine bay. And then I'm thinking, you gave me a hood that is made to let hot air out,
right?
But you put a plastic blanket on it. What is this? I don't care what the plastic blanket looks like. Take that thing off and let's get some hot air out of this engine bay.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people commenting here. The black painted top for when David comment. Yeah, the painted tops are awesome. So we have our second. Did you see where I have a second Bronco showing up?
Yeah, that's you and I are in the same boat. And I actually, I haven't apologized on my channel yet, but I feel
yeah.
bad. I'm really excited and I love the Bronco so much. And I'm not paid to be a Bronco ambassador here, but I love my Bronco so much that of course I'm thrilled to be getting a second one. But at the same time, I feel bad getting a second one when a lot of people haven't gotten their first. And I was really worried at first, do I not say anything? And I'm like, well, at some point I'm going to go do some light off-roading, because Marie thought my off-roading sucked. She's like, you don't off-road hard enough. I'm like, get your own Bronco then,
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. No. I have to disagree with her on that one. I saw you tearing up, what is that, a cornfield? Some farmer, some poor farmer's spent all that time getting it, and you're just out there tearing it up. I'm like, look at that. That looked like fun too. And I heard a few RPMs. Were you in 2-wheel drive when you were in the grass, the green grass?
Yeah, I was at the bottom of the hill in the green grass. I was in 2-wheel drive with traction control off, and I dug into that field deep. I was starting to sink and doing more sinking than I was advancing, but I was like, no, I'm not. I've got skid plates and everything, and I know the farmer. They'll get their tractor and pull me out. So no, I'm keeping this thing pinned to the floor, and I've broken in my engine. I've got my 1,500 miles in, so I was pretty determined to get up that hill and get out of that mud.
Oh, I heard the RPMs. It was almost like you could hear the wastegate dump a little air out when you let off the gas. I was like, man, my hero. I haven't even done that yet. But yeah, that's pretty cool. So yeah, as you see before Gavin Stanfield, I love live YouTube, by the way, because remember I was telling you earlier, my cat strolled across the table here. And I'm thinking, what is up with that? It's like, we're live here, dude, go. And so you have a poodle that is it a poodle, right?
Yeah, it's
does it own the Bronco or just ride along?
he's a cowboy poodle. He likes to ride along in the Bronco, and it's wild. Well, I'll get home from work and he'll come see me, jump on me, and then if I don't basically act as the world's best goalie, he'll shoot out the door and go start jumping in front of the Bronco to be like, hey, come on, Dad, I want a Bronco ride.
I want to get here. That's pretty cool. I tell you what, the animals are awesome. Next to kids, the most exciting thing I have happening right now. Let me ask you, do you think the Bronco energy is going to fade, or the growth will slow after maybe that initial market saturation, or will the market ever be saturated? I mean, I've been thinking long and hard about it.
Yeah, I know that is a tough question. I think what is going to happen is the markups are going to go down. I think the whole markup craze is going to go away. I don't think this will ever be the type of vehicle that if you buy and then 6 months later you want to sell, your $10,000 or $12,000 upside down. I don't think. The only time that would happen is maybe in 15, 20 years if they get the recipe wrong and, they put in the wrong ingredients. But with the current Bronco we have, we're not going to see that.
It's sort of that constant off-road vehicle that regardless if you're going camping, you're just going having fun, or you want something, if you live in areas that gets a lot of snow. I mean, it's the vehicle to get. I'll tell you, when I was in Townsend, Tennessee last April, I was truly shocked, because to that point, I'd only seen them online and at a local dealer, but you couldn't even, you could sit on them, but you couldn't drive them. we went to Townsend, and our driver Kyle took us down these trails. I mean, it was insane. Just I couldn't believe it. And probably the dumbest thought that ever came to my mind, but the first thing that came to my mind, we were on the trails like a magic carpet ride. This thing was so smooth over the small bumps. I mean, anything big, you would hit it. And, poor Gavin sitting in the back, he's seatbelted in and filming, he's bobbling around and stuff like that, but he
was it a 2-door?
It was a 4-door base soft top 2.7.
Okay.
And we were going through there, and it was just awesome. Yeah. I haven't ridden in a 2-door yet. Now we got to drive at that event. We got to drive the Bronco Sport. And I have to tell you something. I know some people, especially, social media stuff, they like, it's not a real Bronco. Well, it's got Bronco written on it. I drove one. I was on the bash plates on the rut, leaning to one side because it was bottomed out, and just nailing it down the trail. And this is in Tennessee. These things are, I mean, they are actually very capable, but yeah, I was just wondering about that market set. It's almost like a culture, like Jeep, right? Jeep's been doing this for a long time, and there's people that will, if you had to push start a Jeep to get it going, people would still buy them because they're that sold on the brand. So I mean, it's like I get it. I love the culture.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think things are gonna tone down a little, but at the same time, I don't think the hype is ever going to go away, because we got to think the Broncos we have now, in 10, 15, even in 20 years, people are still going to want them. Yeah. And what's amazing is they're going to want them because they still won't need to do anything to them to go do some medium to extreme off-roading, depending what model they have. It's wild. You get the keys to a Badlands, and you can go do some extreme rock crawling. Not extreme to the point where everyone needs to be on, 40s or whatever it may be and have like these extreme flex machines. But for the type of vehicle that it is, for a big SUV weighing the same thing as a BMW X5 with its inline 6-cylinder engine, which is getting the same power stats almost as the 2.3 liter, people are going to want these as off-road and machines. And for a lot of these Broncos, that's when they're truly going to be living their heyday. They're going to be living their best, wildest days once these things are 15, 20 years old. Because, I'd love to go rock crawling. I finally, just this week, I found a place, and it turns out it's an hour and a half away, and it's mostly legal to go there. Not like some of the other places I would have been, it wasn't really public.
But, I like the mostly legal part. Yeah, let's not get into what makes it one or the. Yeah. Well, I don't need to know.
when you're on mostly legal trails, the real problem is if you get stuck, because that's when you get caught.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're gonna get their best beatings, you could say.
Yeah, it's only illegal if they catch you, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Hey, so off-roading is something that my extent of off-roading is I went to Texas off rodeo, right? And what was crazy for me, for someone that hasn't really done it, here's what I've done off-roading before. In 1987, I had a F-150 short bed, and I pulled a Pinto through the woods. It was somebody had gutted the car. It was on its roof, and we hooked a strap. We thought it would be really cool to pull it through the woods, see who could get the fastest speed on this. And I think I hit like 35 with it, and until it wedged between two trees. And then I've realized that tow strap, no airbags, seat belts, and steering wheels all have a unique combination. They're an ingredients for just a sore week. And anyway, so that was just, a dumb teenager. But when I went to Bronco off rodeo, I didn't know. I guess I didn't think about it. I probably would have if I'd have thought about it. There's so much that goes into off-roading, right? Your approach, paying attention to things, obstacles. I was going up a rock ledge and we were sliding slightly sideways, and there's literally a real drop-off, like not something in Hollywood. There's a real drop-off that's maybe 20 feet, not far from me. And that's when I realized the use of front and rear lockers. We had our front locker in, and our back was sliding over a little bit. And as soon as I hit the rear locker in, of course, I was in a Badlands. We went right up that rock, and I was able to see and almost think that those type of courses let you know what the buttons do. They're not just cool little buttons with the cool names and a light. They actually do a function. So I was impressed. Have you been? Are you going to off rodeo, or have you?
When I can easily, because we don't in Canada, we don't have any off rodeo sites.
Got it.
So I'm waiting for the future when it's not
Gotcha.
excessively complicated and costly to travel. Because and Marie-Pierre, she totally deserves it, and I totally want to take her to Vegas.
Yep.
But we got to do it when it's right. We don't want to get stuck here or there. We don't want to do a test right before and then not be able to go.
Yeah.
And lose out our tickets because they're non-refundable.
Right, yeah.
I'm just waiting for the right moment. But for now, I can tell you that, driving 100, not 100, sorry, I'll put it to 70 miles per hour down a dirt road, either a dirt, road through the woods or, horrible. The main roads are actually a lot worse than that wood trail I did. And it was actually so bad that my camera, Marie-Pierre holding the camera or the camera on the stick, it was too much. The stick couldn't handle it, but we didn't understand. We're flying down the road. The steering wheel's in my hand. I'm doing absolutely no correction. And had that been a Jeep, I would have been in the field hitting cows. But
because you're the travel. What do you call it? Not death wobble, but it's pulling you back and forth. Yeah, the solid.
Yeah. No pull, and I'm blowing down the road. Marie wasn't even complaining. She was just like, this is fun. Winston was smiling with his tongue hanging out, and the Bronco is really capable. And that's when I was like, wow, I could have waited another 6 months for this, and I would still be smiling, saying this was totally worth it. And I usually get tired of vehicles. I usually buy a vehicle, and 2 weeks later to 4 weeks later, I'm planning the next vehicle. I'm wondering, well, how much can I sell this for? Because I want to go live a new experience. And this, I'm like, I want to live more of this experience. I got to find myself another Bronco. So I picked up one of those, the last week or two at the factory. They're going to be building Broncos. And because they can't go to reservation holders, almost certainly because of not having enough tops, I think they're going to work out and finish those tops probably in the first 3 months of 2022 production. But I picked one of these, scooped up one of these Broncos, and at least, and I feel bad because I'll have two, but I also don't feel bad in the sense that there's some, there's a lot of people out there. I could call them car sharks. They're not really car people, and they're just going to buy these Broncos, put them in garages, not even take photographs and make them, Instagram queens or kings. Model. These Broncos are going to be hidden in garages for 6 months. And, as soon as they can sell it without getting on Ford's, banned list, because Ford doesn't sell new vehicles so that people can resell them 2 days later. And I don't know if it's like that in the States, but in my area, if we were to pick up a Bronco and we're to just straight off sell it to the States to make a ton of money, because the Canadian dollar is relatively low to the American dollar, we would make tens and thousands of dollars. And there's people who are trying to pick up these Broncos, hide them away so no one gets to drive them, and then they'll just sell them off in 6 months in one day.
Yeah, well, let me tell you what happened to me, and I don't know if David's still here or not. I want to chime in real quick. Congratulations to All Terrain Nation for hitting 1 million views over the weekend. For not being around that long. That's strong. So congratulations, David. And good people over there. If you haven't checked out All Terrain Nation, definitely check them out. They have a live tomorrow night, I think. But getting back to that, let me tell you my story, because I had someone comment, and it was a nice comment, but it made me feel horrible. Just because, I guess my nature. But so what happened, I told you we had the 2 reservations, and what was it? The Wild Track, right, Gavin?
Yeah.
So it was the October 27th. I guess there was a deadline on the 28th that you had to convert your priority code 99 for a 2021. You had to convert it to an order for 22. Otherwise, you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's anyway. So the person that handles that with my dealers, they're off on Thursday. So Wednesday, they said, okay, so we don't lose it because Thursday was the deadline. She pushed it as an order. But what we hadn't talked about, and this was totally my fault, not the dealer's fault at all. I didn't tell them that I'd changed what I was going to ultimately order, the color, the trim, and the interior. And so I get the confirmation Wednesday night, your order's been confirmed. I was like, okay, cool. Friday, we'll work it out. Thursday night, I got a build week of December 20th. And I was in like a panic kind of, really, And so Gavin will tell you, I was like, you know, what am I going to do? Friday morning, they were able to change the entire order. So I got the Badlands, Eruption Green, Hardtop, MIC.
Wow.
Yeah, like it's Sasquatch, by the way, Lux, 12-inch. I mean, the entire order. And when I go to the track my vehicle, it's the right order. So
Yeah.
it was a unique thing that the intention was Friday. We were going to party code 99 it for later in 22, not to show up the second week of January or give or take, depends on, you know, how busy the transit is with the New Year's. So that was my deal. And then I felt horrible that there are people that don't have a build date yet, right? That's waited early. I mean, I was a day one reservation for the 2. We have our 1, and then bingo, that one's showing up. It's like, oh man. So I really felt, you know, bad. I have no idea how that happened. It is what it is. I didn't think we'd push an order on Wednesday and get a build date on Tuesday or Thursday, the next day. So that's my story there.
And I really liked your video about, you know, I really liked that you brought out the information, and, you know, that's awesome information that even when you have a build date, and even when you have a VIN, you can make changes, not all the time, but some of the time. So, you know, I actually looked further into that, and I contacted my local dealer and I talked to them about it because, you know, I was under the general impression that generally, if you do try to make a change once you have a VIN and a build date, that you're playing with fire. So I had this really nice discussion with them, and they said, you know what, for now, 2021s, often what will happen near the end of a production year is that everything's just planned out perfectly at the factory, and to avoid complication, they don't allow changes. So at this time of year, if you have a build, if you're a 2021 build with a VIN and a build date, you probably can't change your 2021. But, you know, throughout the beginning, middle of build year, you can actually make changes. I've actually mentioned it early on that you could usually always safely change your color, but after that you're playing with fire. But I was actually told, they're like, you know what, the system, if you do try to change something, and I think it happened, I was watching your video, and I think when you tried to ask for the heavy duty modular front bumper, the system basically was like, whoa. And you know, the reason it probably didn't let you have that heavy duty bumper is because that is a part that has more demand than supply, and that would have pushed you out of your build week. So the system's actually
just like toe pack.
Yeah, exactly. And if they would have had tow packs, even if it's on the naughty list, if there happens to be available tow packs for that week, it would have accepted it. But anything that pushes you out of your build week, I always thought it's playing with fire, and that the system would accept it, but then you'd lose your build date. And I was told the system is supposed to, and the key word is supposed to. So that doesn't mean it's not impossible that you could lose your build date and your VIN. But the system is, if you ask for something that is unavailable for that week, the system is supposed to not allow you to change it. Now, of course, this all depends on the experience of the person in front of the computer, which has the computing system that is directly linked to the factory's computing system. So if they don't know what they're doing and they put in the wrong code, they can just cancel your whole order, and you've now lost your reservation date. So from the beginning, you know, I always said that the safest thing is once you get a build date and a VIN, don't change anything, even though, and later on I said, you know what, it takes someone pretty bad at computers to, when in changing a color, to actually cancel the order, and then you lose your reservation timestamp. So I started to say, you know what, you can switch the color, but I guess that's the full story, but as much information as I can share on that. But you got to trust the person who's doing it, because if they do it wrong, then poof, you're gone.
Well, no, and I'm blessed that who I'm dealing with is the person that orders all of the vehicles. So it's right to the source. You know, I'm not worried about that. Gavin's got a question for you.
So is the Bronco necessarily going to lose all its like energy, or the real question is the Bronco gonna is the Bronco energy gonna fade, or will it continue to pump on?
Well, Johny was just saying, he was just saying that no, it's because it's a culture. It's more like a cultural play, where people want stuff like that.
Yeah.
What about that question? That's the one I want to know. He's got a really good question for you.
With more people going outdoors, road trips and camping, how does the Bronco play a role, or does it?
Yeah. So, the move to the outdoors, right? People are doing more camping, camper sales are record high. I think they still are. With more and more people going to the outdoors. So boats are in short supply. Campers are in short supply. I guess Broncos are too. How's the Bronco, do you think, going to be used to get people to the outdoors? I mean, the people that are new to the outdoors, are they going to buy a Bronco to go there? What do you think?
Yeah, I've gotten quite a few comments on my channel and good questions. I have people saying, I'm going to go camping. I want to go camping somewhat off the beaten trail.
Yeah, right.
Which Bronco should I get? And I think a lot of people bought Broncos saying, I might go camping and I might go off the beaten trail, and then bam, crazy wild track sales, crazy badland sales. And then that 1 out of 100, real off-roader who's going to do some extreme off-roading doesn't get his Bronco because it's, there's 10 of them at the Walmart mall. They're all 10 are at the mall, and he's hiking with his boots and has no Bronco up in the mountains.
Yeah.
But,
well, your video on that was awesome, where you were just, I guess, trying to help people decide which Bronco's best for you. What are you truly going to use it for?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's
well, and I got the last question here for you, and then we'll follow up a couple more small things. What would you change about the Bronco?
Yeah.
V8.
Yeah. I love the 2.7 liter, and I feel that for my love of power and acceleration, the 2.7 liter is top. I love a low end torque engine. You give me torque, 100% of my torque from 3,000 RPM all the way to 6,500 RPM. I'm a real happy camper.
Yeah.
You give me 80% of my torque, or 70% of my, 65 to 70% of my torque at 2,000 RPM. I'm smiling ear to ear. So I actually prefer the drive on the 2.7 liter if I drove with earbuds. So I've had a lot of V8s. I don't really miss my 5. Well, of course I miss my 5-liter GT convertible, but I wouldn't be using it anyways. I just start it up once a week and listen to the sound of it. So yeah, the V8 would be great just for sound. But what would I change if they're going to keep the 2.7 liter and make the V8 only available on, let's say, the Shelby, and let's say the Raptor or Warthog goes 3 liter, and I'm hoping 3 liter twin turbo hybrid, because that would allow for 600 pound-feet of torque, and that would be absolutely insane, like on the Aviator plug-in.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping it goes. I'm hoping it goes plug-in. I hope they don't just do a simple 3 liter like on the Explorer ST. I hope they put in the Aviator plug-in version into the Bronco. But I would definitely, if I was working at the top of Ford, I'd say, hey guys, the 2.7 liter, put on a throatier exhaust on the top trim models, because it's amazing that they're offering the 2.7 liter for, if you consider you have to take an automatic with it, it's kind of just under $4,000, or the option of the engine is what, $2,000. That's ridiculous. You walk into BMW and you ask for 100 pound-feet of torque. You walk into Audi or you walk into Mercedes. One's taking you to an AMG, the other one's dropping you an S, the S letter in front of whatever you're getting, and the other one's going to call it an M package, and they're going to add, 25,000 Canadian, or what must be about 17,000 US on your end. And that 100 pound-feet of torque costs a lot. And then Ford's just like, $2,000, here you go, awesome engine. But what I would like is that the higher trims, I don't want that to go away now. I love it when people are blessed and people can have awesome stuff for less.
Yep.
But I would be extra blessed if our models, the Badlands and the Wild Track, came with a throatier exhaust and an air intake.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And the air intake is something that, I'm going to look into doing stuff like that. I think in the near future, but that's about as much as I'm going to do to the engine. I think, we had somebody on it before the comment goes away. Gregory wanted to know when was my second reservation. It was just after midnight. So technically July 14th, the day, right after midnight, but before the sun came up after the reveal, I had 2 reservations. So that's it. You know, when you think about V8s too, now I get it. I said it in my 2.7 video. I love just V8s, or, you know, I think you watched that. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So when you're dealing with small displacement, naturally aspirated V8s, the engines got bigger because they needed to draw more air in. They needed more combustion, piston, torque. They needed more mass, right, to do the job. So now what's happened, whether you're supercharging, which has more parasitic loss on an engine than a turbo, even though a turbo actually, it's not, I hear that people say, what's free horsepower. It's not technically free because the little bit of increased back pressure affects it a little bit, but much less than a supercharger because of the belt driven effect, right? So it's like an alternator and AC.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think, yeah, it just takes away from it. So I think what Ford did was, with the small diameter turbos, which is smart, low end, winds up quick, very responsive. But I think what's happened is the government has said that there's a certain fuel efficiency, fuel economy standard that's got to be. And we want hot rods, all, you know, performance Mustangs, all, you know, all terrain vehicles that really get it. Ford played moderator by giving us both, right? So they're satisfying the fuel regulations, right? But then they're doing these small engines in a way that's giving us the performance that we're asking for.
Yeah, it's interesting because there is a old saying that used to be 100% true, and that's that there was no replacement for displacement, meaning that, you know, you couldn't get around. You needed a bigger motor if you wanted bigger power, and that's just the way it was. It was a law written on it was one of the 10 commandments. I think it was the 11th commandment that no one talks about, and there's no replacement for displacement. And early on with early turbos, when I saw them leaking like crazy, and I remember back in the 90s, people were laughing at Ford, and I was one of these people laughing at Ford, and I was like, haha, I have a 2-liter turbo MR2, and I'm going to smoke this Mustang right here. Yeah, I'm going to smoke it. And then, it's 50,000 miles, I'll be smoking because my turbo is leaking oil all over my engine, and it's going to cost me a fortune. So, early adoption of turbos, I wasn't a big fan, and I was really against it. And then when Ford came in with their first turbos, there was turbo lag. And I really like how you covered in your 2.3 liter and 2.7 liter video. Congratulations. Those videos are awesome. And I'd say you're the source for talking about those two engines. I've never come across such an amazing explanation. So I loved it. And,
thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you for making it. And the smaller turbos, they really got rid of the turbo lag. And I remember in 2013, the Escape came with the 1.6 liter. And I would tell everyone that I knew, don't get this. Don't save money and get a 1.6 liter. Right. I do not like this engine. And get the 2 liter. The 2 liter is pretty darn good. And the 2 liter, when it came to Gen 2, now the 2 liter we have is more than pretty darn good. It's fantastic. Yeah. There's next to no turbo lag. The 2.3, small issues with, if I recall, the first RSs with the gasket, but they've pretty much worked almost everything out, or other than rare instances, everything's worked out, and they respond so well, to the point where my 2016 Mustang convertible, I had this awesome red convertible 2.3 liter, and up to, what was it? About 40 or 50 miles per hour, 80, 90 kilometers an hour. I preferred my 2.3 liter Mustang over Gen 1 of the 5 liter. So Gen 1 of the 5 liter just didn't seem to really kick on until you're at about 4,000 RPM. And then at 4,000 or 3,800 RPM, you'd be kicked back and go, wow. But until then, there wasn't enough going on. Whereas the 2.3, you just touch the pedal and you get instantly kicked back. But then you get to, highway speeds, and then you're like, okay, well, what's going on?
Yeah. Well,
what happened to the engine? Where did it go?
Yeah. Well, now these engines I want to follow up to that. Do you have a couple more minutes to stay on?
Oh, yeah, sure.
All right. So Gavin has to hit it's his bedtime. So he's going to say goodbye and split, and we'll finish up here if you don't mind.
Well, I can go to bed at 10 tonight.
Can you want to stay up for 15 more minutes?
Yeah, sure.
How about 15 more minutes?
9:30, and then I have to help.
Well, see, I have to look out for my co-host. Gavin keeps me straight, so I don't like it when he leaves and I'm doing this, because then I get off subject. So He always keeps me on track because I talk about everything. But and I appreciate what you said about the videos. Yeah, I know engines, and here's the funny thing about the Bronco too. And Gavin and I getting back in this. I build like I said, a lot of engines, a lot of hot rods, race engines, stuff like that, and just a few race engines, not a lot. It's not like I was a professional engine builder, but I have a car that I'm going to do a video next to my Bronco here, and I think everybody will see that. But it is such an amazing thing to be able to spend this time and showing your son what, I guess it could be showing your daughter or whoever, but in my case, my son, the nuts and bolts of it, right? So when we do an oil change video, which is going to be probably in 2 weeks, maybe, I'll be about ready to do the oil change. We have some really good stuff we're going to do there. And Mr. Gavin here is going to help me change the oil.
Yeah.
So he's going to learn at a pretty young age. Most of our vehicles get taken to the dealer, but the Bronco, we're going to do just about everything to ourselves, just so you can say you have that hands-on time, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But
and we know what happened.
But here's one thing somebody was mentioning, they asked a question on a Facebook group, how many people were new to the Bronco world, and the majority answered, they said they were new. So there's a lot of new Bronco owners, which also means potentially, maybe I'm being presumptuous, but there's a lot of new turbo owners. So I have a video coming out about turbo etiquette, which is kind of funny because you don't typically hear etiquette in car videos, but turbos are treated, they have to be treated with the utmost respect, as you well know.
Yeah.
And there's a certain driving habit that is not good for them. And also oil change intervals that I really think need to be done. And we're going to go in depth and do some sort of scientific approach to the oil change. And we're going to create a baseline for our engine's health. And then every oil change or every other oil change, we'll be able to recheck that engine health. And that's with an oil analysis. And we're going to follow, how do we do that? What's the process? Who do we use? And so it's pretty clear. It's going to be pretty cool. But have you heard the questions about the 7th quart of oil? Like on the 2.7, people can't seem to get 7 quarts back in it.
No.
Yeah. So if you watch some oil change videos, there seems to be, so there seems to be some questions. Well, it says 7, but when we drain it and measure it and put it back in, it's 6, or somebody says 6.3, 6.4 quarts. Sort of like, where's Waldo? Gavin and I know where Waldo is.
Yeah.
So when we do our oil change, we're going to explain why there's a discrepancy in that. So I can tell you off the air, by the way. It'd mess our video up if I said it now.
Yeah. But it's a surprise flash. And if you are reading up where we are reading up, you will know what it is.
Yep. So, but yeah, check that out. And, but look, I've got to tell everybody, if they go to your channel and watch it, I wanted to hit on this before we go too much, wrap it up, is the Maverick. So I've looked at different Maverick videos. Gavin and I were watching YouTube the other day, and I have to say, you're the Maverick expert on YouTube because you're putting the knowledge out there, and I'm thinking, dang, man, because somebody asked me the other day in the comments, and I said, hey, go check out Johnny's Car Care and Reviews. I don't know the answer to your question, but I bet he does. So like the Maverick has been a hit for you. It's a new vehicle or what? You just like the way it looks?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the compliment. The real expert on YouTube, in my opinion, is actually Tim Bartz. I think he's the absolute, you can't surpass the knowledge that this guy has when it comes to the Maverick and different Ford models. But I'm happy I get to be one of the guys. And no, the Maverick really does interest me. I had to work on Marie Pierre. She's my partner. She's the one that gets me into all these Renault projects. So Sundays when I'm trying to, squeeze in an extra video because I feel compelled to do so, because Sunday night I read some bad untrue information on Facebook or a YouTube video that was completely off and has 100,000 views. So I'm like, no, I gotta address this.
Yeah. Too many people now know what's not the truth. Yeah.
Exactly. And I remember the very first online big name driving review of the Maverick. I was like, hey, no, the 2-liter isn't just, just enough power. The 2-liter can actually tow pretty decently. Like I have friends that have towed with a 2-liter Escape, and that's the more laggy old Gen 1. Now that there's no lag, it's even better to tow with.
Yeah.
And it's like they're out there saying that, when you're driving in a straight line, it doesn't quite have enough power, and it's just enough power to kind of propel you. I'm like, oh boy, so many people might cancel their Maverick orders or not order a Maverick. And this truck, if you look at inflation, this truck is cheaper than a Model T back in the day. Like, this is the people's champion. Wow. And I can't have the people's champion getting knocked down like this. I'm jumping in the ring and I'm putting on the gloves, and I'm gonna,
take bad journalism to the ropes, right? So, no, I think the Maverick's cool. If I needed for the nature of our business, I need a little bit more room in vehicles, but I'm definitely going to drive one. My dealer where I bought my Bronco actually had a cactus gray one. I think it was cactus gray. So were they not supposed to be out yet? Or, I mean, they're obviously out. I've seen some people that own them, but when did they start shipping them? Because this was about a month ago, or not even a month ago.
Yeah. That's in September, and I can't remember what was the very first day in September, but at some point in September, the first ones arrived. I think it was in Tennessee, the very first Maverick to show up. Then there was one in Texas. And then after that, they started to pour out. What isn't supposed to show up yet is the hybrid. And, one of the things that, drives me, it really encourages me to do more videos is when I read something like, if you're 6'4" and you put all the front seat all the way back, no one over 5 feet tall will fit in the back seat. And, I appreciate this kind of information, because at first I read it, I'm like, oh, geez, this is huge. Like, I'll write in the comments, like, thank you so much for dropping down this information and, helping the community. But then I'm like, but I do need to test this. So, I get my brother who's 6'1". I'm like, sit there. And then I put the seat all the way back, and he's like, this isn't going to look very good on YouTube. My knees are touching the seat. I'm like, yeah, but if I close the door, will you fit in there? We close the door, and he's like, yeah, I fit, but don't put this on YouTube. This looks horrible. Yeah. I'm like, no, this looks great. You're 6'1", the seat's all the way back. You could have someone else in the front at 6'4", and you fit. Like, this is incredible. And then, I feel compelled to do a video mentioning how the interior space of the Maverick is actually similar to the big Bronco. So I love the Maverick. I fell for it hard, and I took 2 months to convince Marie to say that she'd get one, but now she loves it too.
Yeah, good. And I was watching a video. You're moved till the spring before yours shows up, right? Or
yeah.
So were you saying that, and there again, I watched the videos, watched a lot of the videos today on the back. I got into the playlist and I was like, dang, man, this guy knows his stuff. The Ford's going to start making the electric motors in-house, and there's less copper used. So that's pretty interesting. I mean, that's details there that a lot of people, and that's what I like giving on these gas engine stuff, but definitely a lot of good info there.
All right.
You want to say goodbye?
Yep.
All right, man.
Everybody, I'm going to head out and help my sister set up her tree before I have to go to bed.
All right, buddy. Thank you. See ya.
Thanks for the questions,
right,
Gavin.
Yeah, he's my awesome. Now watch the show will go off the rails here, so we'll have to wrap it up soon. See you, buddy. But so Gavin and I, we have this cool relationship with this Bronco thing, and I tell you, we had it before the Bronco, but like I said, it's that thing, and I'm sure some people with the Maverick it'll be the same way. So, hey, you want to go through some of the questions here? I don't know if you can see them on your end, Johny. Who has the let's see, T-Pog, who has the coolest steps with rock rails? So are you into a lot of the accessories with Broncos, the aftermarket?
Yeah, not so much. I mostly got the few accessories I got from the parts department at my local Ford store.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go all crazy, mostly because I'm cheap, but also because I pro and con everything. I look at everything like it's a science experiment.
Yeah.
So, the pros and cons to the running boards, for example, the step bars. I'm like, well, if I get step bars, I no longer have protection against rocks, because the Badlands, of course, in 21, but no longer in 22, comes with the side rock rails. Now I am happy. I know Ford doesn't watch my videos. I'm not popular enough for that yet, but I was back in, I think it was June, end of May or June, I was saying, come on, Ford, if you're having trouble pumping out hard tops, and Webasto, of course, not Ford, like just give us a prep kit and a whole bunch of us are going to switch to the soft top. And what's crazy is, you know, I was pushing this, I said it across 3 or 4 different videos, add a prep kit. A whole lot of people will go with a soft top. You're going to look like heroes. Do it. They did it. But I actually made my swap, I think 2 or 3 weeks before they gave the prep kit for free, which meant I got built, what was it, like 10 days before getting a free prep kit, because I made that switch that I've been talking about, which, you know, if I were to make switches to the Bronco, I'd, you know, the handle to get in, I'd have a handle for Marie, because when you do have those rock guards, the pro is she laughs every time she has to jump into the Bronco. So I like that. I love seeing her laugh. It's bringing us our Bronco rides, our Bronco Sunday rides are bringing us closer. You know, we'll just drive through the countryside, chit-chatting away. And but I know I haven't been big on the accessories, and I find a lot of the accessories just don't make sense for me. Like the Bronco, the truck already has amazing LED lights. They clear 400 feet in front of me. I'm not going to throw on a light bar when I already have all sorts of lights. And again, I'm cheap, so I'm not going to spend 1,500 Canadian to have good looking lights. That made sense in the 1980s when your front lights were run by candles and you couldn't see anything.
Right. Yeah. And you know, I'd mentioned, I was talking to you that, you know, I'm rethinking the light bar on top of my Bronco. I still might do the ditch lights, but you know, I think part of it's the aesthetics. It looks really cool. It
does look very cool.
How many people are going to use the lights? Like, you know, you were talking about sway bar disconnect and stuff like that.
Unless you're illegal hunting and you're trying to blind deer at night, you're not going to use
you're not supposed to do that
light bar. And I think I'm going to get an email from SEMA telling me to shut up. You know, I'm costing them sales.
Don't say that. No, and to each his own. And that's the other thing too, is like your channel, you know, we don't bash anybody for something that they want to do. I could care less. I honestly think it looks really cool to have all those lights on there. I just don't know if I'm going to do it. Because I don't know if I'll ever really get my use out of it, you know? But there again, right now, did you see my video where I did the folding shelf on the swing gate on the Bronco?
The fold out table?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there was some complaints about, you know, rattle, you know, someone making noise, maybe going down the road. And I lucked out. There was 2 issues originally. The screws, if you're not careful, you know, zip a screw through the outer skin of the door. I think they've solved that in the kit, but I lucked out with an installer that was an awesome guy, and he put mine in at the dealer. I didn't want to do it, and it was actually harder than I thought. These little anchors that go in, but he has a way of putting these in, and this is where everyone that has that skill, I can appreciate someone's unique skill. So he doubles up on washers, which pulls the bracket away from the gate just a little bit, which shortens the depth of the screws, but it makes sure that the mounting bracket that mounts to your swing gate is further from the gate so it doesn't rattle. And because there's these little rubber grommets, but if you tighten the screws down enough, you squeeze the rubber grommet so the bracket will hit the gate. So he has this little unique little deal that he does, and there's no noise. So when you get into the accessories, part of the accessories, whether you do it yourself or get someone else to do it, is the nuances about them being right. You know, wires not leaking that come through the roof of the Bronco or whatever. So I think as we go on and we do more to these Broncos, we're going to find those little quirks and be able to, you know, here on YouTube, spread the word. Here's what we did to fix it, or here's what you can do to make it better.
For me, the aftermarket that does interest me is going to be a closed box air intake, just because I like the sound, you know, because, you know, and anyways, pros and cons to everything. As I always say, when you have an open cone, it's just sucking the hot air of your engine. And that drives me wild. If I know I'm getting a better sound, but I'm losing horsepower or fuel efficiency or whatever it may be, I don't like, personally, and I don't like things that don't have a valuable gain versus the price I pay. Even let's say if I know, hey, I make a video on this, it's going to pay the accessory.
Right.
I still don't want the accessory if it doesn't make sense. However, I do appreciate people's different styles, different looks.
Yep.
So, you know, I wouldn't spend $1,500 on a light bar, but when I see someone with a $1,500 light bar, I'll probably go up to them and be like, "Hey, congratulations! That looks really cool. I mostly wish I had it on my vehicle. If it was a free, yeah, of course I'd take it, but I can't. You know, the cost analysis versus the benefit doesn't work for my personality."
Yeah, and I compliment these people that buy a new Bronco and they completely tear them apart and paint them and change them and brill. It's like I
So
couldn't do
cool.
that, man.
Yeah,
I
I
couldn't
know.
do it personally. I couldn't do it. I would have a panic attack
Yeah.
if I took my Badlands that's in the garage right below me and started ripping it apart. It's like, man, I like it the way it is. So, but definitely performance stuff we're going to do. You know, you were mentioning some stuff that you can do can actually hurt the performance, and this turbo video I think is going to be interesting because it's there's going to be a lot of knowledge there about, you know, especially if you're new to the turbo world. They're the best thing in the world, but man, they come at just a little bit of extra maintenance, and if you don't do the maintenance, it will let you know you didn't do it. So yeah, the importance of H pipes in the exhaust for balance and balancing the pulse of an engine. You know, we talked about that in the 2.3 video, which Ford, the engineers at Ford, I have to commend them on this. The 2.3 liter, the reason why it's such a hot engine is because if you look at the, you know, the RS or the Mustang, look at what they're doing horsepower wise with them. And so if you're worried about your 2.7 or your 2.3 in your Bronco, just know it has the lineage and it has the architecture in the engine to make a lot more horsepower than it's making in the Bronco. Yeah. So it's a solid engine.
Yeah, I've got a contact that brought their 2.3 liter Focus RS to 500 horsepower.
Wow.
And this guy is daily driving it. And at that point, you know, on my 2.7 liter, I don't think too long and hard. You know, I wouldn't install a turbo timer on it. Of course, if I do drive it, you know, the day I drove it in the fields, I didn't just, you know, because I was getting very high on the RPMs. I was maxing it out, but I didn't just turn off the key, and I didn't either just, you know, bog it into a swamp with water going up to the turbo. I didn't want to, you know, I know you can go from an extremely hot turbo, and if you cool it off too quickly, you can have some serious issues.
Oh yeah.
And in the winter, you know, of course, if it's going to be minus 30 degrees or 40 degrees Celsius, when I get into the parking lot, I'll probably let it idle for a minute or two, unless I was driving slowly in traffic just beforehand. But I wouldn't. It's not 1990s turbo technology. Right. You know, back then I always had a turbo timer. I would always let it heat up for 5 minutes before driving away, because I just couldn't drive that thing unless the pedal was to the metal. And when I'd get home, I'd let it cool off. I'd have the turbo timer for 5 minutes too, and that's a lot coming from a guy who is inherently very cheap. So for me, that 10 minutes for every ride was just killing me, knowing what it was costing me in gas.
Yeah, you're counting down what you know. What you mentioned there. Spoiler alert there, but what you mentioned about the cutting off part, the letting it idle for a few minutes. Most people don't know that have a turbo. They have no idea that you're supposed to. Because if you're driving and you know you like it, like sounds like you like squeezing the gas a little bit. And if you get off the interstate and there's a couple of turns and you're on the gas and you pull in your driveway and turn it off, that is absolutely the worst thing you can do to a turbo engine. So yeah, that's pretty smart, having that few minutes to let it cool off, 5 or 10 minutes, or I guess 5 minutes each way. So you were talking 10 minutes a day. But yeah, the 2.7 heats up really quick. I was surprised. And how Ford's integrated the exhaust manifold into the head helps with that, because the exhaust gas helps to heat the water up. And of course, the shutters in the front close. I mean, you're probably in temperatures that's going to keep your shutters closed a lot.
Yeah, I love those front grille shutters, except for after an accident, because they do make for a very expensive repair bill.
Yeah.
Which doesn't affect me. It affects the insurance company. And of course, it affects and the overall price I pay in insurance on the Bronco. Like I couldn't believe it. I'm like, if this thing gets stolen price wise, like what's the argument going to be? Well, I want to replace it right now. I need $150,000 US. Like, and I've got, what I pay in insurance on the Bronco is what I was paying on the Mustang GT 2018. Right. And it's also only double the price. It's actually I think it's less. I think it's $100 less per year than I was paying on my 2011 F-150 3.5 liter EcoBoost with almost 300,000 kilometers.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you know, the Bronco, and I think, what do you think about people that's paid 30,000 over MSRP? You think there will be any remorse there? Or is it just like the honeymoon will never end? Is that maybe that's something we shouldn't talk about because that's probably a too negative. Blah.
Well, I think it's positive. You know, if someone's willing, that's capitalism.
I love it. Yeah.
It's best. I love that Ford made something that's so incredible that
Yeah.
people are willing to spend an extra 30,000 US for. You know, it's a huge success. You know, the recipe is right. You know, and I'm thrilled that for a while I was almost worried that when they didn't announce that they're going to have a V8 on the Bronco, I was worried all sorts of people would just pull the reservations. Because if you watch, you know, back early on YouTube videos or YouTube comments, you just constantly hear, I'm not going to get it if it doesn't have a V8, and it's garbage if it doesn't have a V8, as if it takes a V8 to move 5,200 pounds. And, you know, Audi's Q5 is like 4,300 pounds, which is the weight of the two-door Bronco. And the X5 is also 5,200 pounds, which is the weight of our Badlands, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And, you know, our 2.7s are running way more power than the inline 6 3 liter from BM. I think, you know, Ford made some really good choices on the engines. I'd love the V8 there, but
yeah, I'm with you on that. The 2.7 and the 2.3, either engine, I am totally sold on and have no issues with whatsoever.
And think about the people that do pay 30,000 over MSRP. If they can afford it and the 30,000 is no sweat, you know, it's peanuts for them. I'm really happy if the person before that was an actual owner of a Bronco who will have $30,000, maybe change their life, maybe make their life a whole lot better for the next 5 years. You know, maybe it's going to buy them, I don't know, something that's going to make the whole family even happier. I don't know, an in-ground pool, maybe it's going to pay off debt, but whatever it may be, if it's helping someone out, that's great, you know, because people have money and people get to spend it how they want. You know, we've got places around the lake in my area where if you cut all the trees and shrubs all the way down to the waterfront, you know, you can have these huge fines, and they just build it into their build price. When they're making their $5 or $10 million home, they just put it in the budget that they're going to have to spend X hundred, whatever it may be, tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars for fines, and they do it. And well,
I get it. No, I'm all for, like, I love the making money in the world and spending it where I choose to. I saw a comment, and I don't typically comment on, you know, negative stuff, but somebody was railing about, well, I'm going to wait 3 or 4 years until the prices come down and they're sitting on lots. And I said, you know, tomorrow's not promised to anyone. You don't know you'll be here in 3 or 4 years. Right.
Yeah.
So life is for the living, and I'm going to do it. And my son and I, we spend so much time. I mean, we did before, but remember what I was saying? How easy is it on a rainy Sunday to watch TV instead of going somewhere? Well, now it's like the Broncos made it cool to go somewhere in crappy weather.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, well, cool. We're not staying home today. We're going to go do something fun. And then on those nice weather days, it makes it even better.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I'm looking forward to going to the Outer Banks here in North Carolina on the beach. And we're going to go down with some Jeep friends. And so we're going to have some, you know, fun competition, do a lot of filming and stuff like that. And that's the cool thing too about the Bronco. Look, I don't care if you like Jeeps or if you, some people just don't care. They like the off-road vehicles, right? And they'll take whatever comes their way.
Yeah,
but then you have brand loyals. Look, well, I'm brand loyal mostly to Ford. I am a Range Rover fan as well. But if you have a Jeep, man, let's go hang out. Let's go wheeling. And, you know, I'm going to pull you out of a rut one day, and probably you're going to do the same to me. So, you know, it's that fun banner, and that Broncos brought that. And we were going back to the money part, you know, what's friendships worth, right? Or what's family time worth, or fun. And I think Ford, I will say this, if they give Emmys for commercials and like, you know, the reveal of the Bronco. So that whole production that was done was perfect.
Yeah.
because it sold how many? Like, I mean, 190, was it 190,000 or was it less than that or more?
No, it was right around low 190 or 193. No, you got the number pretty much spot on for
So,
reservations. And then what was it?
right.
About 125,000 got converted to orders, 70%. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
That's a conversion rate that I don't know if anyone else has ever had. And I would say this, that commercial for me, I mean, I like the Bronco looked cool and it was fun. It's coming back. And I didn't find out it was coming back until 2 days before somebody told me, hey, you might want to watch this coming on TV. It's going to be great. I think it was on the internet and it was on TV. I forget where I watched it. I ended up watching it on the internet, but I couldn't, when it was done and over with, I was like, what just happened? Like I'm in sales, right? Real estate sales. And I'm always like, I was sold and I didn't know I was being sold.
Yeah.
Like we people are good. Whoever's responsible for that, we're awesome. And it's easy to sell a thing like the Bronco, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, the magic is that we were sold, and in no way did it feel like we were being sold. It was a complete emotional, wow, just
and that's
wow.
And that's the definition of perfect, right? In the world of and it's like some people look down on sales and stuff like that. You're all in sales. Every person is in sales. You're either buying or you're selling, but you're in that sales process. And so I always tell people like it's part of life, right? You don't go to a store and get some, like I don't know if do you have Chick-fil-A in Canada?
Not in my area.
Okay. So like I will wait. Sometimes the line is like 3 deep around a Chick-fil-A here. And I will wait. I'm sold on them so much. I'll wait in a 30-minute line while my vehicle's idling. And I know that would make some people cringe, but I will wait just to get that chicken sandwich, because I'm sold on their service and I'm sold on their product, right? Because I know when I get to the window, I'm going to get my pleasure and generally it's going to, most of the time, if not all the time, it's going to be the right order and it's going to taste good. What Ford did in that reveal was they took this vehicle that's easy to sell because of all of the cool stuff, and they were able to put it in front of people in a way that made the end product show up day one, even though it was long before day one, right? We couldn't order until January of 21. So I don't know. I don't want to go into too much about that, but I just think it was awesome. But well, look, I'm going to wrap this up in just a minute. Anything you want to add that we haven't covered?
If you have any Maverick questions, of course, I love talking Maverick, but no, I've really enjoyed, it's really cool connecting with someone that's, not just hours, thousands of miles away, and finding, some commonality, knowing that, and I don't know if you're like me on this, but a lot of that Bronco reveal, part of the emotional attachment to, I've got to have this machine, was thinking back to, the past, thinking back to my dad being in the woods and, all these fond family memories that you're going to be building with Gavin. I love hearing about that, how you're building memories with Gavin, Marie-Pierre and I, you talked about a rainy day. I think it's incredible being able to connect with someone far away and having a lot in common with them. Our rainy days, we spent it tearing through a field, and the Bronco is such a family builder that farmer's field, I was tearing through the cornfield and they had laid down, I don't know if it was what it was, but it ended up being this white powdery stuff that was really hard to scrub off the Bronco. But I was in that field just throwing mud 30 feet in the air. And it's actually my ex-wife's field. And, she calls me up on my cell phone and she's like, hey, go do it in the grass field. I'm like, I can't do that to your grass. Like, that's so disrespectful. That's the worst thing you can do to a farmer. And she's like, no, go play in the grass field. And, the Bronco is so powerful. It has such a family bonding. It can even make you be friends with reconnect and be friends with your ex-wife. It's a powerful machine.
Yeah, it is. And I kind of, we've been talking about this, hit a couple Maverick questions, and but Terrence Mooney, hey, how are you doing? The payment ends now. Thanks for checking in. Rob Rule, Mike Max, T-Pock, everyone. Hey, yeah. It's funny how this Bronco community too, there's a lot of people that, we follow each other's content and that's the best thing. When I went to Townsend, Tennessee, so, we have the Mustang, obviously my book here, the Mustang on the front, how, I told you early on how a car changed my life. how the Bronco will, you just mentioned it with family and how it builds memories, right? How many memories in 30 years will be told and there'll be a Bronco mixed into the story? There'll be a lot of them. But when I went to Townsend, Tennessee, it was a group of people that, I'm new to the Bronco community. I don't know anyone there. It was like a big family. This was in Townsend, Tennessee at
Oh, that's
Supercell
cool.
East. It was like the biggest, I don't know. I didn't meet one person there I didn't like, right? Everyone, you were there for this common cause. It was a little bit different in the car stuff too. Cause with the car stuff, there was more competition between
Yeah.
the early and the late model and who had a concourse and who has a resto mod. I mean, my car freaks out the people that love classic concourse, the perfect restored Mustang. Like they run when they see it because it's a resto mod. It looks stock, but then you get up close to it and you realize, holy cow, nothing stock about it. The thing with the Bronco, it just seemed like everyone, it didn't matter what you drove, what year it was, if it was stock or hot rodded, whether it was an early Bronco that was cut or uncut, it didn't matter. Anyway, so it was pretty cool. So the one thing I'll say is the community around the Bronco is awesome.
Yeah, and the names you named out, like Rob Rule, Pavement Ends here, that's the usual group of suspects. And I find it's really cool because with the Bronco community, I'm also finding that it's so different. I used to do car competitions and car shows, but really they were car competitions. So I'd show up with either my modified 300 ZX or later on one of my MR2s, and basically for an entire morning and afternoon, it's just guys arguing with each other on how what you did to your vehicle is like sacrilegious and you broke one of the 10 commandments. And then it'd be like, my car's louder, so it's better. Oh, I bet my car is faster than your car. And it was just this negative, arguing of who spent the most money on their car. And it was a lot of trash talk. Whereas the Bronco community, I love the Bronco community. People are like, hey, you did this. I wouldn't do it, but hey, good on you. That's cool. And I find it's a really positive community and I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, it's fun. And it's, I mean, YouTube loves the Bronco stuff for certain. I mean, can you hear me good?
Oh, I can.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. Sorry. My screen glitched there for a second. Thought I lost you. Actually, I'm glad you're still here. So YouTube seems to love that. I don't know if I've ever seen algorithms go crazy over something like Bronco content. I mean, you've been doing this a while. I mean, isn't it just wild? So there's so much interest.
Oh, I think I was at maybe 100 subscribers at one point.
Yeah.
And I got 34,000 views on one of my early Bronco videos, because while everyone was saying that EcoBoost technology is horrendously unreliable and that they're the worst engines out there, that's actually one of the main things that pulled me into Bronco content, because before that I was just doing car washing stuff because I was worried about people ruining the cars the way I did when I from 16 to 25 years old. I must have owned 20 black cars, and I would always lie to myself and say, this is the last black car. Mom, I'm telling you, I'll never buy a black car again. And then I'd get another black car. And
they look so good. They look so good. Yeah.
They look so good. And then I would ruin them because I'd wash them wrong. So I was doing car care stuff, just car care stuff. And Johnny's car care and reviews is because, and it used to be and advice, because all I was doing was car advice. And it was about, washing your car, cleaning your car, waxing your car. But anyways, all this talk about the EcoBoost engines being complete garbage. And I was like, whoa, no. I put my cape on and I tried to fly in and start talking about EcoBoost engines and saying, yes, an EcoBoost engine can be unreliable, but it's like a relationship with your partner, your wife or husband or partner. So, if you maintain it and you're careful and you're conscientious, you listen to it, it's going to listen to you, and it's going to last, maybe not a lifetime the way an old push rod 350 engine is. You're not going to leave it alone in a scrapyard for 20 years and say, honey, I'm home. I got my pack of cigarettes and come back after 20 years. And the V8's going to be like, I still love you. I'm here for you, baby.
Pour gas in it and let her rip. A little concoction in the carburetor to get it going. A little, you're right. I mean, as long as you kept water out of the cylinders, it would turn over. Now, if the water was sitting in the cylinders, it was gone. But the thing, I know how hard it is to make horsepower, and with naturally aspirated engines. I'll tell you how crazy I was as a teenager with engines. We built an engine and we decided we wanted a blower, a supercharger, and we didn't have any money to put one on it. So, the vent fans that go in the back of a boat engine compartment?
Yes.
Have you ever seen it's like an inline fan, 4-inch
Yeah.
ductwork? So I said, okay, my dad had a spare one. I was like, well, okay, what if we put this under the hood and we run some dryer duct from it and to the carburetor? And I was young. We were just getting started doing crazy stuff. And I hit the gas and I hit that switch going down the road and it lit the tires up. The problem was it burned a valve pretty quick because I didn't realize the air fuel mixture was way wrong. And it runs so lean, it just cooked one of the cylinders. And so I learned early on, there's a lot more than just blowing air in a cylinder.
I love your story. It reminds me of one of the first mechanical things I did is my buddy was like, hey, come over to my house. You've got a Plymouth Satellite. We're going to change your camshaft. So he had a 1968 or 69 Corvette engine hanging around. So I think that's what it was. Anyways, it was an engine. There was no car attached. And he told me what he told me, and I believed whatever came out of his mouth.
Right.
So he pulls out the camshaft, and I don't know what it was. 3 hours later, and I had been convinced to buy, new lifters and hydraulic. I bought springs and hydraulic lifters. So we've taken off the top of the motor. We're putting this all back together. We hammer in a camshaft into the bottom of the push rod, and
nice.
It's a Plymouth, right? So we're literally in the engine bay, sitting on the fenders, hammering away, playing around with the tops of the motors. And he was adjusting this by ear, as if we're Dukes of Hazzard's 1971 here. And about 4 or 5 weeks later, oddly, that engine blew. Who would have thought? We blew up an engine.
Yeah, when you mentioned hammers and camshafts in the same sentence, that wasn't going to be good. Yeah, something was going to go way wrong.
Yeah.
Camshafts are off. But I think when you look at and there's any number, I don't know the failure rate of any engine. When you're building millions of engines and you have a very small amount, if you're the person that owns the vehicle, that's a bad day, and I feel bad for you. But I have to look at things over the 30,000 view, right? How many units are out there? How many have issues? The EcoBoost is probably the 2.3 or 2.7. I would say one of the most reliable overall engines out there. And I'm not just being a fanboy. I know engines, and I know what's in the engine, and I know when you take care of it, it's going to, like you were mentioning earlier, it's all in how you take care of it. So
yeah.
But once in a while stuff happens, unfortunately.
Yeah, it reminds me of this one story. And like you say, it all comes down to in how you take care of it. And, I covered that back in one of my first videos, and out of nowhere I had 35,000 views, and you're going to be covering it in 2 weeks. So, we can't do it justice in talking about it now anyway. Yeah. So we don't need to talk about all the fine points, but any turbo engine, you do need to take care of it. So people should definitely watch the material you're going to be putting out soon. But I've even seen 5 liters blow. But you have to remember that people tell stories, and not all of them are true. Some people are just inherent. They don't even know they're lying. Some people just they either love it or they don't know they're doing it.
Right.
But I was in this one situation where a 5 liter blew, and this was at like 60,000 kilometers. And the owner, I know him and get along really well with him, but he was saying, he'd always done his oil changes. And I think on Ford's end, they're like, oh, okay, well, in that case, we will pay for the motor to be taken apart, but we want it to be, kind of filmed live, and we want to kind of be there, and so open it up, opens it up, it's mud in the motor. And I mean, like this was the original oil. And the owner was like, oh, no, all the oil changes were done. They're all done. Oh, okay, well, great. I know that, Ford asked for the receipts, didn't provide receipts. Then later on, the receipts were fabricated, made up receipts. That was the original oil. So, and that's the problem with the internet.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why I'm so compelled to do
Right.
videos is because there's some people that, for whatever reason it may be, you know, whether they hate a certain brand, so no matter what, they're always going to trash on it, or maybe they've had a bad experience and they're just not able to say like, hey, you know, maybe this bad experience was due to me. You know,
Yeah.
a lot, sometimes the problem is in between the seat and the steering wheel. Sometimes that's where the real problem is. Steering wheel,
Yeah.
seat, who's there, what's there. Sometimes that's the problem.
Well, and I think a lot of it too, and you know, I help a lot of business owners, friends of mine, to really to understand what obstacles they're facing, and sometimes it's negativity seems to be, unfortunately, it's one of the things that I think a lot of people gravitate to
Yeah.
because it's so easily understood by someone who's not very happy. And so, dang it, I got a ticket today, or something didn't happen right at work, and I get home and I don't have my billed email, and then they just hit the keyboard and start complaining. And you know, I've found myself, even though I know better, this summer saying, I just wish I knew what, you know, I wanted more information on my Bronco, right?
Yeah.
I needed to know the video that Bronco Nation did that said, if you don't have your VIN today, you will be a 22 with a hardtop. That's all I needed. I mean, the
Yeah.
next day I switched to a soft top. A week later, I had a build date, and it was the craziest thing. I'm a grown man, and I got the email, and I didn't know if I wanted to jump up and down, cry, run around the block. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was so happy. I called Gavin. Um, I couldn't wait for my wife to pick him up from school, and I called right when I knew she was getting him. And hey, you know, that was like the first person that I called was Gavin. The first person that rode in the Bronco was Gavin. That's what the Bronco does, right? We keep talking about family. It always goes back to that. So that's the positive thing there. Hey, real quick on the on Maverick. So I was amazed. What makes the Maverick appealing to someone and not the Ranger? It's just like the Ranger is a truck. The Maverick is bringing in a lot of the small car buyers. Is that the way I'm understanding it?
Yeah, I think you're completely right there. And, you know, I'm going to do my best to say this without, you know, I don't want to come across as negative, but I think the Maverick really does it well. I think, you know, we've had this empty space for a long period of time. We miss our 80s and 90s trucks, which if people remember, I remember being in a Mazda B2000 and you couldn't pass on the highway. So you could, but it took like 5 minutes. And
Yeah,
if
you
you're
get a
doing
running
that
start.
on a two-way lane, you'd hit head-on traffic. It was impossible to pass on a two-way. But anyways, the Maverick, it's low to the ground, it's wide, and I think part of the problem with the Ranger is that it's too narrow. It's got a very narrow look to it. You know, I look at the front of a Ranger, and it almost reminds me of the front of a Jeep. And one of the things that doesn't appeal, at least for me, on the front of a Jeep is I don't like that little nose. Maybe it's because I have a big nose and I like things with a vehicle with a big nose, but the Maverick's got a big front nose. It's got a low stance. So even though it's, you know, doesn't have like a V8, it looks like it's going to be fast. And then I think it's unbelievably practical. And one of the main things that you could say it boils down to is it's more fuel efficient than a Honda Civic, and it's less expensive than a Honda Civic. And it doesn't have a CVT transmission, which a lot of people were saying it has a CVT transmission. And I would be making YouTube videos saying, do not buy a Maverick if it had a CVT transmission. It has an eCVT, which is a planetary gear set. So there's no strap. I don't like CVT transmissions, not just because when you drive it, it feels like you're driving something that has this elastic feeling, like you kind of hit on it and you kind of feel slingshotted forward. They're also not all that reliable. It's not the best. It's not the best idea out there. And it's a way for manufacturers to save a lot of money.
Right.
And when I see people driving certain models saying like, oh, and I don't want to name any names, but you know, certain models with CVT transmissions, and they're trying to convince everyone that they're the best vehicle out there. It almost rubs me the wrong way, because with having driven so many vehicles, I know they don't drive that great. But I think the Maverick really got it right in being able to put 1,500 pounds in the bed. Now the total payload of the vehicle is 1,560 or 1,580 pounds, probably based on the motor, but it's right around there. So unless you have an 860 or 80 pound driver, you can actually put 1,500 pounds in the bed. But
Yeah.
the C2 platform will allow it. And
Right.
some people will assume that the C2 platform is, not good enough for what you could say a truck, because it's what's used in the Escape. But it's also, like you've said, it's used in the Bronco Sport. And the Bronco Sport, what's amazing is just like your experience, you can have it right up on the skid plates. You can have a tire in the air, and there's no flex. It's solid. That is an amazing. The C2 platform is incredible.
Well, I'm like you. When I did my Bronco Sport video, I didn't. This was something that I saw, and I thought it's a cool looking vehicle, right? And it fits. There's a different market. If you're buying a Bronco Sport, you're not buying a 4-door. But I don't understand why people with the big Broncos, 2-door and 4-doors, some, not all. Trust me, it's a very small. But you know how it is. You've seen the comments. It's not a real Bronco. What do you mean? I drove one in Townsend, Tennessee, in conditions that most vehicles wouldn't have made it through. And it's, I mean, I've got the video on my right here on Bronco Wild Outdoors. It's a beast. I mean, I drove, it was funny. We were on the bash plates leaning on the rut because the ruts were so big from the big Broncos. And we were cruising through there, and they were Badlands. We were all in Badlands, but it was really cool. So yeah, that whole platform there is very, very capable. I think Ford has done a lot with bringing in, I forget the numbers that I saw. So I saw it somewhere. I don't know where it was, but how many new people, how many are new to the Ford Oval, right? The blue oval, to the Ford brand. How many people has the Bronco brought over? Now the Lightning, now the Maverick.
And the Maverick.
And the Mach-E. I mean, Ford right now, when you look at, and it's easy for me to say this as a Ford fan, but if you look at all the brands out there, I mean, the leadership at Ford has their eyes wide open and are very conscious of where the market is. And you know that by looking at what they're bringing to market, and they're fitting the needs of a lot of new buyers. And so they're bringing new people in. So
I watching Ford these days, it's pretty cool because throughout the 1990s, I got to see a lot of, diehard, Ford families, go for everything else, Kias, Hyundais, a whole lot of Toyotas. And, they went all over the place, and Ford lost a lot of clientele. And now they're gaining back a lot of clientele. And it's almost like watching wrestling, because, it's sometimes you see these horror stories of someone's reservation on their Bronco that they've waited for, 10 months or a year. And it finally shows up at the dealer, and the dealership's like, yeah, it's going to cost you an extra $25,000 over MSRP. And then you have, Mike Levine flying in with a cape on and, putting the smackdown on. And you're like, oh yeah, cool. I get it. 2 days later, it's all worked out. And it's like, just like watching I feel like I'm 12 years old watching a wrestling match in the living room with my brothers jumping off the couch out of excitement.
And the guy you're rooting for wins. But, also the current CEO of Ford he's actually a car guy. Right. And you see him in a racing suit. He's always, in a race car somewhere. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit feedback in my headphones, but it's pretty cool when your CEO is actually a car guy or a car person or woman, in this case, car guy. So what it does is it helps, I think, the overall mission of the company to stay, you're not tone deaf to people buying your product, like you mentioned in the 90s and things like that, So the products now, I never would imagine I'd want a electric pickup truck, but after seeing the launch of the Lightning, I'm like, dang, now I do. I mean, because I've been slow to get on the electric car wagon, so to speak. And I think the Mach-E's made it easier. I mean, look at what Tesla's done. Tesla's obviously led all the manufacturers, in my opinion, to where we're at. I mean, I don't know if you agree with that, but there's a lot of nuances there, but I don't want a Tesla. Mach-E now, I would drive a Mach-E in a heartbeat.
Yeah, no, it's really cool that Tesla brought the market here. Now, we can't forget that Ford had an electric Ford Ranger, I believe, in 1998. They did three-year leases. They were commercial leases with the legal requirement that the company would return the electric Ford Ranger back to Ford. So you couldn't buy out the lease. So Ford was playing around with electric technology back in 98. But Tesla has brought everyone to the game, which I think is really cool. I really like the Mach-E. I've driven it. It's pretty impressive. And it kind of reminds me back to the 1990s when a lot of us were laughing at Ford for not having turbos. And then later on, a lot of us found out that the turbos we did have were just, cracking. The scrolls were flying off into the engines, or they're just leaking oil and they needed, rebuilds. But we had all sorts of trouble. And, I would never have thought to have, been on the Ford bandwagon. I remember, I think it was in 2004, 2003 or 2004, my brother was working at Ford and he took me out for a ride in a yellow Mustang Cobra. And my brother can really drive. Like I'm a horrible driver compared to him. So he takes me out for like basically a race car ride in this thing and drives on pretty much like a professional race car driver. And he's like, "So what do you think?" I said, and I can't believe I said this to him. He's my older brother. And I just look at him, I go, "That was really cool. That's the wildest ride I've ever had. Too bad it's a Ford." And I walked off and drove away in my car.
And you're like, dang. And now you look back on it and say, "Oh, it was actually pretty cool." Well, I've never, what I mentioned earlier, and I promise this will be our last thing. I'll let you go. I was thinking an hour and 15 minutes. I'm thinking, man, what are we, 2 hours and 5 minutes?
No worries.
The thing is that I look back now and think that I got out of the car world. It seems, obviously I've been driving vehicles, but a lot of company vehicles and things like that. But I got out of the hot rodding thing after I built my black and gold Mustang here behind me, in 2004. And, we did a few events after that, Nashville Super Speedway, Charlotte, cool stuff. But after that, it just seemed like I just paid more attention to just in vehicles, just what I was driving at work. But with the Bronco and explaining to Gavin how things work, and now we're, getting this car here back on the road again. And there's all types of, it's just cool that I think the Broncos brought me back to hot rodding again. And so we're going to build another engine so Gavin can see how it's done.
That's cool.
And like, what are we going to put it in? I said, I don't know. We'll find something, put it in. So, so this car here has a 347. And it's a stroker motor and naturally aspirated 2 4-barrels and a lot of horsepower. And it's cool to hear it run because it's so loud and obnoxious, but it's just cool when you hear it. It's like, yeah, I want that. But Johny, I'm going to let you go here. And I'll finish up with everybody as soon as we go. But the Ford Maverick content is awesome. Your Bronco content is awesome. Your entire channel is awesome. So if anybody's watching this and you haven't seen Johnny's Car Care and the reviews, check it out because when I've been checking out your stuff. I've commented, months and months ago. I looked, you had 900 subs. And then you're at 43 or 4,400 now. And thinking, man, and you're putting out the content that people want to see and knowledge they want to know and need to know, really. And so I appreciate you educating everyone, including me.
Well, that's really, really kind of you to say. And I got to throw the compliment back at you because honestly, your 2.3 liter engine video and the 2.7 liter EcoBoost engine video were the two finest explanations and run through of an engine. I was thinking this guy has got to be he's got to be an engineer for airplane engines. Like I was blown away. I was really impressed. Like a lot of the end results, basically, the 2.3 liter, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, we would have basically been calling it a race engine. Same thing for the 2.7 liter.
Right.
And in the past, I've covered that, but how you so clearly explained, all the ins and outs of the engine that I was like, wow, this guy's going to be have two, 3 times more subscribers than I have in a year. Like I can bet my $5 on it. I'm really impressed, and I really enjoy your material. Thank you for having. I really appreciate you having me on the show. It's an honor.
Well, I appreciate it, and like I said, it's just awesome. Like I said, I think we all have our maybe our specialties in this, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I know mine is mechanical stuff, and I know I'm in the real estate business. Like, what is that? I think deep down, I've left my gift in engine building somewhere 20 years ago, and I need to resurrect it. So that's what the Bronco stuff's doing. And that's why Gavin and I are going to build something. And I think it'll be part of this. I mean, it might not be a Bronco engine, but it'll be an engine that we'll do something fun with. So, hey, I appreciate it. I've kept you for way too long. I really appreciate you being here. Great stuff. And let's connect again in the future.
I love the sounds of that. And it'd be my pleasure to be back in the show when you're ready to have me.
All right. Absolutely, Johnny. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. You too, bud. See you. All righty, everyone. So I hope everyone's had a good time tonight. It's been a couple hours. Johnny's a great, a great guest. So we're going to try to hit this here. We're going to knock this out. But anyway, Johnny's a great guy. If you ever have seen his channel, the Maverick content, Bronco content is just really, really, really cool. So hit the like button. Yeah. Go over to Johnny's Car Care and Review and definitely hit that like button. So it's just definitely one of those things that you check out his content and it is absolutely awesome. It's thorough and you find out stuff that you think he's going one way on the content and it's somewhere else. Right. And it's like, dang, I didn't know I needed to know that, but I do know that. And I think that when you watch other YouTube channels out there, All Terrain Nation, their content is absolutely awesome. It's funny how I can't wait until the live stream there tomorrow night. It's like a TV show. And I don't watch a lot of TV. I'm mainly watching YouTube, but it's so we all these different channels and it just have a lot of great content. And so I'm just thankful to be a small part, even though I don't think my content is great, but I just appreciate, being there. And so, hey, everybody, Rob Rule, thanks. You're in the Greensboro area. Awesome. I was down there not too long ago. Thanks for tuning in and staying tuned in for a while. Mike Max. I really appreciate it. The payment ends now. You guys are awesome. You're always here. So everyone else that's joined us tonight, I really appreciate you being here. This is awesome. And a huge thank you to everyone. We went over 1,000 subscribers this weekend. And I got to tell you, for Gavin and I, that was truly amazing. Whether you were the first subscriber or the 1,000th or the 1,040th, or if you're whenever, any part of that you played, we appreciate you a lot. And every time I do these videos, I think truly, what will everyone want to see or what do they need to know? And so my why is to try to give as much relevant content as possible to this community. And I'm just thankful to be a small part of it. So thank you all very much. Have a good night. And we'll be here next week. See ya.